एनडीपी ਦੇ ਆਗੂ ਗੁਰਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਾੜੀਆਂ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਲਈ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਘੇਰਿਆ। ਕਿਹਾ ਸਿਹਤ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਾਂ ਦੀ ਘਾਟ ਕਾਰਨ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਅਨੇਕਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਹੈ ਮੌਤ। ओंटारियो के चीफ मैडिकल अधिकारी डॉक्टर डेविड विलियम ने प्रोविंस अंदर कोरोना की स्थिति ते पाया चानना। अज 1038 केस किए गए रिपोर्ट। बीसी के पश्चिमी किनारियां ते लोक सेवा कर्मचारियों लिए सांझे दफ्तर खोलने का किया गया ऐलान। प्रीमियर जॉन होर्गर ने की घोषणा। फेडरल मिनिस्टर लमेटी ने कानून C-22 बारे दी जानकारी। बिल में 3 मुख सुधार किए गए शामिल। न्यूयॉर्क के एक अपार्टमेंट में वीरवार के दिन हुए जबरदस्त गैस धमाके में 9 लोगों के जख्मी होने की घटना वापरी है। इस हादसे संबंधी पुलिस और फायर विभाग के अधिकारियों ने दस्सिया कि न्यूयॉर्क के ब्रोकस में एक अपार्टमेंट में हुए गैस धमाके में 9 व्यक्ति जख्मी हुए हैं, जिन्होंने 2 बच्चे गंभीर हालत में ने। पुलिस मुताबिक जख्मी हुए 9 लोगों में 6 बच्चे ने, जिन्होंने सब तो छोटी उम्र के 5 साल के बच्चे शामिल हैं। पुलिस ने जानकारी दी है कि यह धमाका ब्रोकस के एक अपार्टमेंट की दूसरी मंजिल पर होया, जो कि इन्ना जबरदस्त सी कि घर का दरवाजा कुछ दूरी तक उड़ के दरखत उत्ते जा गया। न्यूयॉर्क फायर विभाग ने दस्सिया कि इस हादसे की सूचना मिलने के 3 मिनटों में सहायता यूनिटां घटना स्थान पर पहुंचियां, जिथे कि गैस धमाके ने काफी नुकसान किया। विभाग के कर्मचारियों ने कार्रवाई करदे जख्मियों को बाहर कढ़िया, जिन्होंने 2 की हालत गंभीर दसी जा रही है। बहुत सारे देशों में कोरोना टीकाकरण मुहिम शुरू हो चुकी है तो आस्ट्रेलिया में भी तैयारियां हो रही हैं, पर बहुत सारे लोग कोरोना टीकाकरण का विरोध कर रहे हैं। आस्ट्रेलिया के मेलबोर्न, सिडनी और ब्रिस्बेन में सैकड़े लोगों ने विरोध प्रदर्शन किया। विक्टोरिया सूबा 5 दिनों की तालाबंदी के बाद खुलिया तो लोगों ने इत्थे भी विरोध प्रदर्शन किया। इन्होंने लोगों को हटाने लिए पुलिस को मिर्च की स्प्रे करनी पई। इस दे नाल ही कुछ प्रदर्शनकारियों को हिरासत में भी लैण की खबर है। फॉकलैंड पार्क में दोपहर समय प्रदर्शनकारियों ने प्रदर्शन किया तो भीड़ को हटाने लिए पुलिस मिर्च स्प्रे का छिड़काव करती नजर आई। इत्थे दस दईए कि आस्ट्रेलिया में फ्रंटलाइन डॉक्टरों को सोमवार तो कोरोना तो बचाव लिए टीकाकरण शुरू किया जाना है, पर इस तो पहला ही लोग टीके का विरोध करते नजर आ रहे हैं। एनडीपी के आगू ते MP सरदार जगमीत सिंह ने हाउस ऑफ कॉमन्स में फैडरल सरकार को घेरदे चोणां का मुद्दा चुकिया तो पूछा कि ट्रूडो सरकार कोरोना की इस महामारी में आखिर चोणां कराने लई काली क्यों है। दूजे पासे ब्रैम्पटन ईस्ट तो MPP गुररतन सिंह ने भी पार्लीमेंट में सूबा सरकार को ब्रैम्पटन अंदर माड़ियां सेहत सेवाओं वाले सवाल चुके ने।
Brampton is one of the worst hit cities by COVID-19. There have been more than 40 outbreaks in our schools, yet this Conservative government refuses to bring in a 15-student class size cap. There have been almost 100 outbreaks in our workplaces, yet this Conservative government refuses to bring in permanent paid sick days. Almost 400 people have died in long-term care and retirement homes throughout the Peel region, yet this Conservative government refuses to properly fund our healthcare system. More than 220 people have died in Brampton from COVID-19. More than 36,000 people have been infected with COVID-19 in Brampton. This Conservative government has failed Brampton, and they must be held accountable. Will the Conservative government act now to properly fund Brampton so we can fight COVID-19?
The Prime Minister told his party to get ready for a spring election. All the while, the new variants of COVID-19 are spreading like wildfire. We've seen the effect of the new variant in Newfoundland and Labrador, where people are getting sick and they're afraid to vote, and it's meant that they've had to delay the election. I have committed that I will not trigger an election while we are fighting this pandemic. Will the Prime Minister commit today in this chamber that he will not call an election while we are fighting this pandemic? Yes or no?
ओंटारियो के प्रीमियर डगफोर्ड ने टोरंटो में उसारी अधीन इमारत का दौरा किया। उन्होंने इस दौरान प्रोविंस अंदर COVID-19 के रैपिड टेस्टिंग बारे जानकारी दी है। इस मौके उन्होंने नाल ओंटारियो के किरत मंत्री मैक हॉटन भी शामिल ने।
Great site here, Mankey's building. They do some great development around the city. Ellis Dawn is the contractor. And this is what we're encouraging all contractors to do, get the rapid test. I want to thank our wonderful nurses and the great people that are helping build Ontario and the city. So thank you guys, greatly appreciated. We're here with my Minister of Labour, Monty McNaughton, and thank you, Monty. You're doing an incredible job. But one message is, you know, we're at Ellis Dawn. I want PCL, all the other big contractors, small, medium, and large, do the testing. We're leading the country in testing with over 2 million tests. We're gearing up to do 1 million rapid tests every single week in everywhere from schools to long-term care to essential service areas to businesses. So please call us up You get the rapid test within your company, and it makes people a lot safer, the community safer, and most importantly, makes your family safer.
I heard schools in there. Are you going to test at schools more than the 5%?
We have the 50,000 test, rapid test going into schools, asymptomatic testing, and we're doing 40 schools in a week, and then we'll be moving on to another high priority neighborhoods. Any comments, Minister?
All construction sites.
I want to pay tribute to all of those men and women that work in the construction industry. 500,000 people are going to work every single day in construction, including 65,000 women. We're going to be doing up to 40,000 tests every single week on construction sites here in Ontario. And this is good news for workers and good news for families.
Is it going to be mandatory for all construction sites?
We're, as of now, continuing to encourage every single worker and the contractors to get on board and make this happen. This site that we're on today really highlights the partnership of government, labour and business working together to keep everybody safe.
ओंटारियो के चीफ मैडिकल अधिकारी डॉक्टर डेविड विलियम ने प्रोविंस अंदर कोविड-19 आउटब्रेक्स बारे जानकारी दी। उन्होंने दस्सिया कि वीरवार ਨੂੰ 800 ਦੇ ਕਰੀਬ कोरोना केस रिकॉर्ड किए गए। कल 847 केस रिपोर्ट किए गए सन ते 1038 केस रिपोर्ट किए गए ने। नाल ही उन्होंने टेस्टिंग प्रक्रिया बारे भी जानकारी दी है।
Good afternoon. It's Thursday, and we'll give an overview of the trends for the past week. I'm pleased to have Dr. Heyer here with us, so to answer any questions related to areas of his jurisdiction. And so that's most helpful. And so I'll talk about our activities over the past week. So since Tuesday, we reported an additional 1,885 cases of COVID-19. That was 847 cases yesterday and 1,038 cases today. Of the new cases reported today, as in our pattern in the past, 376, and I'm saying most are around the GTA, 376 are in Toronto, 142 in Peel region, and 122 in York region. Our 7-day average for the COVID cases is 1,016. The weekly average is continuing the downward trend, and we've been observing this in recent weeks. And so that means that we've seen 1,264 for the period of February 5 to 11. We had 1,600 for the period of January 29 to February 4. And for the period of January 22 to January 28, 2,128. So you can see the trend downward is continuing week over week, and that is excellent. We're also reporting an additional 54 deaths, unfortunately, since Tuesday. While the number of deaths we're seeing daily is dropping, and that is also encouraging, yet there still are deaths are occurring. And we want to report today 44 deaths, and of course our condolences go to the family members. Today's newly reported deaths is the highest number we've seen in almost 2 weeks, and we have noted that accumulation over this time. But we're encouraged that other days it has been coming down and the total has been dropping. So our daily deaths has decreased now to 23, down from 32 in the previous 7-day period.
ब्रिटिश कोलंबिया के प्रीमियर जॉन हॉर्गन ने नैगफॉर विच एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस ਨੂੰ ਸੰਬੋਧਨ ਕੀਤਾ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ BC ਅੰਦਰ ਪੱਛਮੀ ਕਿਨਾਰੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਸਾਂਝੇ ਦਫ਼ਤਰ ਖੋਲ੍ਹਣ ਦੀ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਹੁਣ ਵਿਕਟੋਰੀਆ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ। ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਭਲਾਈ ਅਤੇ ਸੂਬਾਈ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਵੀ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਰਹੇ।
Thanks, Mitzi. It's great to be in my home community of Langford. To follow through on a commitment that I made actually when I was first elected in 2005 to work with the provincial government to get more office space here in the West Shore. As many people will not know, over 20% of the Victoria-based professional public service lives in the West Shore in communities that Mitzi and I represent. And by putting shared space here in Langford, that allows countless public servants to do their work to make BC better, closer to their home, which means more time for their families, less impact on our infrastructure, and less impact on climate change. This has been a long time coming, as Mitzi said. I want to give a shout out to my friend and my mayor, Stu Young, for constantly beating the drum to diversify service delivery in the South Island to make sure that those of us who live in the West Shore can access services, can be full participants in our economy and our social and cultural life while staying as close to home as possible. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, a pandemic is an odd time to open up shared space when for the past year we've been telling people to stay apart. But the pandemic will not be with us forever, and we need to plan as a government, as do businesses, as do communities, as do individuals and families. We need to plan for the day when we can go back to what was used to be normal in any event, being with people, sharing our work, sharing our sports, sharing our cultural and social activities. It's just around the corner. I want people to continue to be vigilant, but also to have some hope that we will get through this together. Share Space provides that opportunity to have workers come to a place where they can collaborate, where they can work together for better outcomes without having to go through the long commute into Victoria. And as we build out this pilot, we want to see more initiatives like this right across the province so that people who work for the professional public service can continue to make their contribution to community, but doing it closer to their own home. I'm proud of the work we've been able to do here. I also want to give a shout out to Citizen Services staff who spearheaded this initiative. It was less than 16 months ago that Mitzi and I were standing in a construction site.
विरोधी धिर दे लीडर एरिन ओटोल ने ग्रेटर नियाग्रा चैंबर ऑफ कॉमर्स के एक वर्चुअल प्रोग्राम में शिरकत की थी। इस मौके उन्होंने कहा कि कैनेडा इस वेले सब तो वड्डे आर्थिक संकट नाल जूझ रहा है। उन्होंने कहा कि कंजरवेटिव पार्टी का इस वेले इक्को ही मकसद है कैनेडा वासियां नूं हरेक खेतर दे कम्मां ते वापस लियाउणा। फैडरल सरकार ते निशाना साधदा उन्होंने कहा कि यह सब कुछ कोरोना वैक्सीन तो बिना संभव नहीं हो सकता। सरकार नूं इस लई पारदर्शी प्लान बनाउणा चाहीदा है।
Canada is in the middle of the biggest economic crisis we've faced in modern times. As Conservatives, we are focused on one overriding issue, getting Canadians back to work in every sector and in every region of our country. But of course, we can't do that without vaccines. Conservatives have been asking for a faster and more transparent vaccine plan since last fall. We led an emergency debate in Parliament on the lack of vaccines and have asked for transparency on the contracts signed and the vaccination timelines by priority group. Each day, the milestones for vaccines move further and further away. Today, we're in 48th place globally in terms of vaccine rollout. It's disappointing and it's holding us back. As leader of the opposition, I have a job to do to hold the Liberal government to account. But let me be absolutely clear. Above all things, I want the government to succeed on vaccines. Canadians need them to succeed because it's only with millions of vaccines deployed that this country will start turning the corner in the health crisis so that we can focus on the immense economic challenges ahead. I wish the government hadn't let us down on vaccines, but they did. And I'm worried the same will happen with the economic recovery. Because COVID isn't our only worry. Canada is in the midst of a severe economic crisis, and this is creating damaging side effects for all Canadians. I don't need to tell you that Niagara's economy has been particularly hit hard by the pandemic. Tourism, hospitality, cross-border trade, restaurants, wineries, and so much more have been heavily impacted. 70% of visitors to the region in any given year are from the United States or international visitors, and that's disappeared. Domestic visitors, of course, are also well down as a result of the pandemic. Later today, my colleagues and I will be meeting virtually with tourism operators and touring Arterra virtually to talk about what we can do to support them. Too many workers have lost their jobs during this pandemic. Unemployment in the Niagara region is over 13%, much higher than the national average of 9.4%. And in Niagara Falls specifically, that number is even higher. Nationwide, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business reports that 1 in 6 small businesses are considering closing permanently in the next 6 months.
फैडरल सरकार के न्याय मंत्री डेविड लमेटी ने फैडरल सरकार के नवे कानून C22 बारे जानकारी दी है। उन्होंने दस्सिया कि इसका मुख्य उद्देश्य आपराधिक न्याय प्रणाली विच काले स्वदेशी लोगों की नुमाइंदगी करना है। बिल C दे विच 3 मुख्य सुधार शामिल ने। कुछ अपराधां लई घट्टो-घट्ट जुर्माने नूं रद्द करना है, शर्त अते सज़ा दी वधेरे वरतों करन दी आग्या देना है।
I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. C'est une journée importante pour la justice canadienne, pour la sécurité publique et pour les bonnes politiques. I would like to thank my ministerial colleagues who have joined me here today, Minister Chagger, Minister Hussain, and Minister Blair. I also want to acknowledge the virtual presence of several of our caucus colleagues. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith, to whom we owe a debt of gratitude for his private member's bill. Greg Fergus, who is chair of the Parliamentary Black Caucus. A particular thank you to Greg. I want to say to the Parliamentary Black Caucus that you played an important role in the development of this bill. Jaime Batiste, who is chair of our Indigenous Caucus. Gary Ananda Sangri, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. And Marcy Ian, the Member of Parliament for Toronto Centre. Thanks to all of you for being here with us virtually. We are all here this afternoon to tell Canadians that we are turning the page on a failed conservative criminal justice policy. It was an approach that did not make our communities safer. It did not deter criminals. It did not make the justice system more effective or more fair. Its singular accomplishment has been to incarcerate too many Indigenous people, too many Black people, and too many marginalized Canadians. Facts are hard to argue with, and when it comes to conservative justice policy, the facts speak loud and clear. It simply did not work. On ne peut pas argumenter avec les faits en ce qui concerne les politiques des conservateurs. Les faits sont clairs. C'est une approche qui ne protège pas les communautés, qui ne décourage pas le crime et qui ne rend pas notre système de justice plus efficace ou plus juste. C'est une approche qui a seulement réussi à faire enfermer trop de personnes autochtones et de Canadiens noirs et marginalisés. C'est une approche qui ne fonctionne pas. The best evidence is in our prison populations. Indigenous adults represent 5% of the general population, yet account for 30% of federally incarcerated inmates. And that's double what it was 20 years ago. Black inmates represent 7.2% of the federal offender population, but only 3% of the population. This is shameful.
ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜੈਸਨ ਕੈਰੀ ਨੇ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਕਾਰਨ ਵੱਡੇ ਘਾਟੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਏ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਲਈ ਉਤੇ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਲਈ ਕਈ ਚੰਗੇ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ। ਕੈਰੀ ਨੇ ਭਰੋਸਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਆਰਥਿਕਤਾ ਨੂੰ ਮੁੜ ਖੜਾ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਹਰ ਸੰਭਵ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ।
I'm here today at the North Edmonton Gymnastics Club with some good news for Alberta small businesses that have been hit hardest by COVID-19. The pandemic and the necessary public health measures have been really tough for many businesses, as we all know. And that's why we have sought to protect both lives and livelihoods and making that a priority since the pandemic began. Today, Alberta's government is announcing the next phase of our plan to protect livelihoods with an additional $10,000 for hard-hit businesses that will be made available through the enhanced COVID-19 business benefit. This new benefit will replace the Small and Medium Enterprise Relaunch Grant when it expires on March 31st. That grant, which was launched last June, has provided over $350 million to more than 50,000 small and medium-sized Alberta businesses with employing nearly 250,000 Albertans. We continue to receive applications and make payments from that support program every day. But we know that many of Alberta's small businesses and job creators will still need help for the foreseeable future until we get enough vaccines from the federal government and we're able to move forward safely. Alberta's government will be there for those businesses and their employees every step of the way. The new enhanced COVID-19 business benefit that we're announcing today will ensure that those businesses hit hardest by the pandemic continue to have access to critical support to help them to survive this crisis. It'll give businesses that have experienced a 60% or more drop in revenue up to an additional $10,000 to meet their expenses.
ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਜੌਬਸ ਇਕਨੋਮੀ ਅਤੇ ਇਨੋਵੇਸ਼ਨ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਡਕਸ ਵੇਜ਼ਰ ਨੇ ਆਸ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਈ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਕਦਮਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੁਣ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਮੁੜ ਆਮ ਹੋਏਗੀ। ਕੰਮਕਾਰ ਚੱਲਣਗੇ, ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਨੌਕਰੀਆਂ ਗਵਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਰੁਜ਼ਗਾਰ ਮਿਲੇਗਾ। ਇਸ ਮੌਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਮਹਾਮਾਰੀ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਲਈ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਵੀ ਜਤਾਇਆ।
I want to say a big thank you to all the Albertans that have made sacrifices over the last few months in particular. I mean, cases are down, some are around 80%. Hospitalizations are down, some are 60% down from where they were at their peak. And that's due to the credit to all the Albertans that have listened to the health orders. We know that it's been about a year now that this pandemic has been going on, and people are tired. But you know what? There's some light at the end of the tunnel here. We've got vaccines have been approved. We're hopeful that the vaccine supply is stabilized going forward. We're hopeful that the vaccines start arriving in more regular shipments here. And that'll help give us more certainty in our communities. And all these small businesses that have made sacrifices, we have to be there for them. That's why this new, the enhanced business benefit that we've come up with here is going to be critical to that. The additional $10,000 of support for the small businesses that have been hit hardest during this pandemic to help them get them through to the full reopening of our society. That's the goal here today, is to make sure that they have the supports they need. And to all the Albertans that are out there, make sure you continue to support small businesses. Order food where you can with your family, get out to dinner, and support these small businesses that are just critical to all of us. And we want to make sure that we get our kids out there where it's appropriate, get them out there, get them exercising. As the Premier mentioned, mental health is just key. We've seen this all in our personal lives. We've all had those days where you get a little grumpy. I've been there. I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it in my neighbors. And I just want to say again, thank you to everybody for everything that they've done to get us to this point where we can reopen. And we've had that light touch. We've had that ability to listen to the rules, be responsible for this throughout this pandemic, take care of each other. And just want to say thank you again to everybody, to all the small business owners and their patience, their feedback. We've heard you. And again, I remember when we brought into place some of the measures in December, the outcry from small business owners wondering if they're going to get to that other side. And we want to make sure we tell them that we've heard them. We continue to provide supports. We provided, with this program and the previous program, we have the potential to provide up to $700 million of support to small business just through the relaunch grant and through this new business benefit that we're launching here today.
ਫਿਲਹਾਲ ਵਰਲਡ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਨਾ ਹੀ। ਦੇਸ਼ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬਾਕੀ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਲਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਣੇ ਰਹੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀਕਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੇ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ।